The living room was awash in pastel colors, the air thick with the scent of vanilla and baby powder. Streamers hung from the ceiling, fluttering softly as guests moved about, their laughter a gentle hum that seemed to swirl around me. I could feel the warmth of the afternoon sun filtering through the sheer curtains, casting a soft glow over the carefully arranged gifts piled high on the table. I forced a smile, my hands trembling slightly as I clutched the delicate wrapping paper, anticipation and anxiety battling within me. My mother's eyes followed me, sharp and assessing a hawk watching its prey. /N as I unwrapped the first gift, the laughter around me dulled, fading into a muffled backdrop. I pulled out a small, neatly folded onesie, its fabric soft against my fingers. But as I unfolded it, a chill ran down my spine. The cruel words emblazoned on the fabric read, /unexpected disappointment, my heart sank, and a heavy silence enveloped the room, punctuated only by the awkward cough of a guest trying to break the tension. I could feel my cheeks flush, a mix of humiliation and anger bubbling inside me. /N the laughter that had filled the air moments before vanished, replaced by a palpable tension. My mother's smirk was an echo of her mockery, and I could almost hear the unsaid words, the laughter she expected from me in response. I glanced around the room, seeking comfort in the faces of friends and family, but their expressions were a mix of shock and pity. I wanted to scream, to tear the onesie into pieces, but instead I forced a laugh that felt foreign and hollow. /Oh mom, you really outdid yourself this, I said, my voice shaky, trying to mask the hurt. /N I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me, the realization that this was more than just a gift, it was a message. The laughter resumed, but it felt distant, as if I were underwater, struggling to reach the surface. I wanted to enjoy my baby's shower, to bask in the joy of impending motherhood, but all I could think about was how my mother had twisted this celebration into something painful. My heart raced, and I could feel a knot forming in my stomach as I tried to smile through the discomfort. The tension between us hung heavy in the air, a storm brewing just beneath the surface, ready to erupt at any moment. /N as the party continued around me, I felt lost in a sea of cheerful faces, my mind swirling with thoughts of how to confront my mother. Could I find the words to stand up for myself? Would she even listen? I glanced at her, and in that moment I realized I would not let her have the last word. I would reclaim my voice, even if it meant facing the storm head-on. /N after the baby shower, I found myself alone in the dimly lit bathroom, the cool tiles beneath my feet contrasting sharply with the fiery emotions swirling inside me. I leaned against the sink, staring at my reflection, my mascara smudged, a testament to the tears I had tried to hold back. The words on that onesie echoed in my mind, taunting me. /unexpected disappointment. I felt a lump in my throat, anger mixing with the hurt as I remembered my mother's satisfied smirk when I had unveiled the gift. It was a reminder that to her, I was still that little girl who could never quite meet her expectations. /N as I splashed cold water on my face, I could hear muffled laughter and chatter drifting from the living room, a cruel reminder of the festivity I was supposed to enjoy. I closed my eyes, immersing myself in memories of childhood dinners where my mother's laughter would fill the air. Yet the warmth of those moments was always tinged with an unsettling undercurrent of sarcasm. I recalled a time when I had proudly shown her my report card, expecting praise, only to be met with a smirk and a comment about how I could do better. That moment had carved a deep wound in my heart, and now here I was again, feeling that same sting, only amplified. /N I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I wanted to confront her, to demand why she felt the need to belittle me, to expose my vulnerabilities in front of everyone. But fear gripped me tightly. What if she dismissed my feelings again? What if this time she laughed in my face? The thought made my stomach churn, and I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. I had spent so long trying to please her, to earn her love and approval, but at what cost? I was not a punchline, and I refused to let her define my worth. /N the family dinner that followed was tense. As we sat around the table, I could feel the air thick with unspoken words. My mother, seated at the head, flicked her gaze towards me, a glimmer of challenge in her eyes. I could sense her anticipation, as if she was waiting for me to slip up, to give her a reason to unleash her sharp tongue. I forced myself to engage in small talk, but my heart was racing, each beat a reminder of the confrontation I was avoiding. Alex, my partner, sat beside me, his presence a comforting weight, yet I could see the worry etched on his face. He could sense my turmoil, but I wasn't ready to share the depth of my pain. /N Zoe, pass the potatoes, would you? My mother's voice cut through my thoughts, sharp and demanding. I nodded, the motion feeling robotic, and handed her the bowl, our fingers brushing briefly. A jolt of electricity coursed through me, a reminder of the connection we once had, now marred by the distance her words had created. I swallowed hard, the taste of bitterness lingering in my mouth. I wanted to shout, to tell her how her constant need for control suffocated me, but the words fizzled away, trapped in my throat. /n as the dinner progressed, I caught glimpses of my family's expressions, some sympathetic, others indifferent. I felt like an outsider in my own life, a spectator to my own misery. I could hear my mother's laughter mingling with the clinking of cutlery, and it made my insides twist. Each chuckle felt like a jab, a reminder of how I had failed to be the daughter she wanted. /n that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I felt a surge of determination. I would confront her. I had to. The thought of standing up for myself ignited a flicker of hope within me, a promise that this cycle of hurt would not continue. I wouldn't let her silence me any longer. I would reclaim my voice, even if it meant facing the storm head-on. The air was thick with tension that evening, the family dinner stretching out like a taut wire ready to snap. As we sat around the table, the clatter of cutlery felt jarring, a stark contrast to the silence that enveloped me. My mother, always poised at the head, surveyed us with a hawkish gaze, her lips curling at the corners as if she knew a secret joke that nobody else was privy to. I could feel her eyes bore into me, each glance igniting my anxiety as if she were daring me to speak out. Alex was seated beside me, his presence both a comfort and a reminder of my own turmoil. I noticed his fingers tapping lightly against the table, a subtle sign of his concern, and I wished I could reach out for reassurance. /n Zoe, can you pass the gravy? My mother's voice sliced through my thoughts, sharp and demanding. I nodded, my throat tight, and as I reached for the gravy boat, our fingers brushed momentarily. That fleeting contact sent a shiver down my spine, a reminder of the connection we once shared before her words became weapons. /n with each passing moment, I felt my frustration simmering just beneath the surface. I wanted to shout, to tell her how her need for control suffocated me, but the words remained lodged in my throat, a painful reminder of my own silence. I glanced around the table, noting the expressions of my family, some sympathetic, others indifferent. It was as if they were all watching a play unfold, and I was the unwilling lead, trapped in a role I never auditioned for. /n the conversation swirled around me, punctuated by my mother's laughter, which felt like daggers against my skin. I could hear her comments, laced with sarcasm, aimed at me like arrows. Well, Zoe, I hope your baby inherits your talent for disappointment. My heart dropped at the casual cruelty, and I felt the heat of embarrassment creep up my neck. I forced a smile, but it felt brittle, a mask hiding my shame. /n Maya's supportive presence lingered in my mind, her words echoing as I tried to gather the strength to confront my mother. She had told me to stand firm, to remember my worth. But in that moment, as I sat in the dim light of the dining room, I felt like a shadow of myself, bound by my mother's expectations. I wanted peace, but each dismissive remark pushed me further away from that goal. Would I ever be able to communicate my feelings without being belittled? /n I could hear my heartbeat thundering in my ears, a rhythmic reminder of my resolve. I thought of that onesie, the way it had shattered my spirit, and the promise I made to myself to reclaim my voice. But as the dinner wore on, the weight of rejection hung heavy in the air, stifling any courage I tried to muster. The tension coiled around my chest like a vice, squeezing tighter with each passing moment. /n the meal ended with the usual small talk, but I felt hollow, as if I had merely gone through the motions while my heart ached for acknowledgement. I excused myself to the restroom, seeking solace in the quiet. Standing before the mirror, I could see the determination flickering in my eyes, battling the uncertainty that threatened to drag me back down. I would not be silenced any longer. I would find a way to confront her, to make her understand that I was not the punchline of her cruel jokes. This time I would be heard. /n the days following the baby shower felt like a heavy fog, each moment clouded by the sting of my mother's words. I sat across from Alex in our cozy kitchen, sunlight filtering through the window, casting a warm glow on the wooden table. Yet the warmth did little to soothe the chill in my heart. "You okay, Zoe?" he asked, concern etched across his features. His brow furrowed as he leaned closer, his fingers brushing the edge of my hand. I could feel the weight of his worry, a reminder that I wasn't alone, but my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. /n it's just, I don't know how to handle her, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. The words tumbled out, heavy with frustration. /n Alex sighed, his gaze steady. "You deserve to be treated with respect, you know that, right? You shouldn't have to put up with her sarcasm." /n his words felt like a balm, yet I couldn't shake the doubt gnawing at me. What if I stood up to her and it only made things worse? The image of my mother's mocking grin flashed in my mind, and I felt my stomach twist. Backslash n, but what if she doesn't listen? I questioned, my voice trembling. What if it escalates? I fiddled with the edge of the tablecloth, its fabric rough against my fingertips, anchoring me in the moment. Backslash n, you'll never know unless you try, Alex replied, his tone a mix of encouragement and caution. But you have to do it for yourself, Zoe. You can't keep suppressing your feelings. Backslash n, his sincerity ignited a flicker of hope within me, yet it was quickly snuffed out by memories of my mother's dismissive laughter. Just then, Maya's voice echoed in my head, urging me to stand strong. The tension between my desire for reconciliation and the fear of rejection churned in my gut, a storm brewing beneath my skin. Backslash n, that evening, under the dim light of the kitchen, I found myself pacing, my heart racing as I rehearsed the words I wanted to say to my mother. I envisioned her reaction, the way she might roll her eyes or laugh, and it made my chest tighten. Backslash n, just as I was about to lose hope, my phone buzzed, lighting up with a message from Maya. You got this, Zoe. Remember who you are. You're not just her daughter, you're your own person. Backslash n, I let out a shaky breath, the encouragement from my best friend swirling around me like a warm embrace. I needed to confront my mother, to shatter the cycle of hurt she had woven into our lives. Backslash n, the next family gathering loomed ominously on the calendar, a date that felt more like a countdown to a battle than a gathering of love. I could already envision the tension in the air, the way my mother's eyes would glimmer with mischief, ready to pounce on any vulnerability. But this time, I wouldn't let her catch me off guard. I would be ready. The days passed, I meticulously crafted my plan, each word I wrote serving as a stepping stone toward confrontation. I felt a surge of empowerment with each sentence, but the shadow of doubt still loomed overhead. Backslash n, what if she turns everyone against me? I asked Alex one evening, the weight of my fears pressing down on me. What if this backfires? Backslash n, he reached for my hand, his grip firm. You're not doing this for them, you're doing it for you. You have to own your truth, Zoe, they'll see your strength. Backslash n, I wanted to believe him, but my mother's voice echoed in my head, mocking me, drowning out his reassurance. I spent hours rehearsing, my voice trembling as I spoke to the empty room. The more I practiced, the more my resolve solidified. I would not be reduced to a punchline. Backslash n, the day of the gathering arrived, the air thick with anticipation. I dressed carefully, choosing a deep blue dress that made me feel confident, a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. As I stood in front of the mirror, I repeated to myself, this ends with me. Backslash n, each passing moment felt like an eternity, the tension coiling tighter with every tick of the clock. I could feel my heart racing, a drumbeat of determination against the walls of uncertainty. Backslash n, as I stepped into the gathering, the familiar sights and sounds enveloped me, but this time I was armed with purpose. I would not allow my mother's sarcasm to cast a shadow over my identity any longer. I would reclaim my voice, and with it, my worth. Backslash n, the days trickled by, each one a reminder of the turmoil festering within me. I found solace in Maya's company, her laughter a temporary balm for my bruised spirit. We sat at my kitchen table, the late afternoon sun bathing the room in a golden hue, illuminating the scattered notes I had penned in a frenzy of emotion. The air was tinged with the sweetness of freshly baked cookies, their scent wafting through the open window, mingling with the distant sounds of children playing outside. Backslash n, Maya leaned forward, her eyes bright with determination. You know, Zoe, you have every right to voice your feelings. It's time to show your mom that her words don't define you. She urged, her hands animated as she spoke. I could see the passion in her expression, and it ignited a flicker of hope within me, even as the weight of uncertainty settled heavily on my shoulders. My fingers drummed nervously against the table, the rough surface grounding me as I battled my fears. Backslash, but what if it only makes things? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, anxiety tightening its grip around my chest. I could feel the tension in my body, a mix of determination and fear swirling together like a storm ready to break. The thought of my mother's laughter, that cruel sound echoing in my mind, sent a shiver down my spine. I remembered how her words had cut me deep and I hesitated. Backslash n, Maya reached out, placing her hand over mine. You can't let her win, Zoe. You're stronger than she thinks. You've got this. Her encouragement wrapped around me like a warm blanket, pushing back against the chill of doubt. I took a deep breath, letting her words seep into my consciousness, igniting a flame of resolve. N, as we brainstormed, ideas tumbled from my lips, each one a step toward reclaiming my voice. I imagined the confrontation, the way I would stand tall, articulating the hurt her words had caused. The thought of finally confronting my mother and breaking free from the chains of her ridicule filled me with a sense of power. My heart raced as I envisioned her reaction. Would she be shocked, defensive? /N Alex entered the room, his expression a blend of concern and curiosity. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching us with a mixture of admiration and worry. What's going on in? He asked, his tone light but his eyes serious. I could sense his protective nature surfacing, and it made me feel safe, yet the weight of my internal battle loomed larger. And Maya explained our plan, her voice animated and filled with hope. Alex's brow furrowed slightly. Be careful, Zoe. Confronting her might not go the way you envisioned. He cautioned, his gaze steady. There was love in his tone, but it also carried the weight of my fears, and I felt a pang of guilt for putting him through this. N with each word exchanged, I felt the tension inside me shift, morphing from a paralyzing fear into a burgeoning sense of courage. I would not let my mother's words diminish my worth any longer. I would confront her on my terms, and I would do it for myself. N as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room, I found a moment of clarity. I would gather my thoughts, write down my feelings, and prepare myself for the inevitable storm. I envisioned standing before my mother, the weight of her disappointment heavy in the air, but this time I wouldn't cower. I would be the storm, not the victim. And Maya squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with confidence. Remember, Zoe, your voice matters. You're not alone in this. You have me and Alex by your side. We'll get through it together. Her words resonated within me, fueling my determination. I took a deep breath, the air filling my lungs like a promise of the strength I was beginning to uncover. It was time to assemble my plan, to channel my fear into action. I would confront my mother, not just for myself, but for every moment I had felt belittled and ashamed. I would claim my voice, and this time it would be heard. The atmosphere at the gathering felt electric, charged with an unspoken tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. Laughter echoed around the room, but it felt distant to me, a mere background noise as I stood at the edge of the crowd, my heart racing in rhythm with my thoughts. I could feel the weight of my mother's gaze, sharp and critical, like a spotlight that exposed every flaw in my resolve. She was seated comfortably, her expression one of smug anticipation, relishing the control she wielded over me. And I glanced around, taking in the familiar faces of family and friends, their conversations a blur as I focused on the task ahead. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, fueling the fire of determination that had been building within me since the day of the baby shower. I could almost hear Maya's encouraging voice in my mind, reminding me that I was not just a daughter but a person deserving of respect. I clenched my fists, feeling the rough texture of my nails digging into my palms, grounding me in this moment. N with each passing second, the urge to confront my mother grew stronger, battling against the fear that had held me captive for so long. What if she dismissed me again? What if her laughter echoed in my ears like a haunting melody, drowning out my voice? I took a deep breath, the scent of vanilla and fresh flowers filling my lungs, mixing with the anxiety swirling inside me. I wouldn't let her reduce me to a punchline again. This was my moment, and I would seize it. And I moved closer to her, the room fading into a blur around us, my purpose crystal clear. Mom, can we? My voice trembled slightly, but there was an undercurrent of strength that surprised even me. She looked up, her brows arching in feigned innocence, as if she were unaware of the storm brewing within me. Oh, what is it now, Zoe? She replied, a hint of sarcasm lacing her words, as if she expected my request to be yet another trivial concern. The tension in my stomach coiled tighter, but I pressed on, my voice firming. I need to tell you how your words hurt me, how they've affected my self-worth. I won't be silenced any longer. And gasps echoed around the room, a collective intake of breath as the realization of my confrontation sank in. I could see the glimmer of shock in my mother's eyes, quickly masked by a veneer of annoyance. But this time I wouldn't back down. I would stand my ground, reclaiming my voice in front of everyone, breaking free from the chains of her ridicule. This was my moment to shine, and I would not let fear dictate the outcome any longer. N as the words hung in the air, a silence enveloped us, and I felt an unexpected surge of empowerment. I was no longer that little girl seeking approval. I was Zoe, standing tall, ready to face the storm head-on. N in the quiet aftermath of the baby shower, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, the sunlight filtering through the window, casting a warm glow over my scattered notes. The air was thick with anticipation and anxiety, and the sweet scent of the cookies I had baked earlier lingered, mingling with the sense of urgency that enveloped me. I clutched a pen in my hand, tapping it rhythmically against the table as I struggled to organize my thoughts. Backslash I have to do, I muttered under my breath, my voice barely a whisper. Each word felt like a weight lifting off my chest, a declaration of my intent. Maya's encouraging words echoed in my mind, urging me to confront my mother and reclaim my voice. I glanced at the notes I had scribbled, filled with fragments of thoughts and ideas, each one a step toward my liberation. And Maya sat across from me, her eyes bright with determination. Zoe, you can't let her define you anymore. You have every right to express how you feel, she said, her hands animated as she spoke. I nodded, the fire of her encouragement igniting a flicker of hope within me, yet doubt still clawed at my insides. What if my mother dismissed my feelings again? What if this confrontation only deepened the rift between us? And Alex quietly entered the room, leaning against the doorframe, concern etched across his features. Hey, how's it? He asked, his voice steady but laced with worry. I felt a rush of gratitude for his unwavering support, yet I could see the tension in his posture, a reflection of my own inner turmoil. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the storm brewing inside me as I shared my plan with him. And as I spoke, I could see his brow furrow with apprehension. Be careful, Zoe. Confronting her might not go as you expect, he cautioned. His words were a reminder of the risks I was about to take, but I knew deep down that I had to try. I was tired of feeling small and insignificant. I was ready to show my mother that her words no longer held power over me. And the tension in the room swelled as I wrote down my thoughts, each stroke of the pen releasing the pent-up frustration I had harbored for far too long. I envisioned the moment I would confront her, the way I would stand tall and articulate the hurt her jokes had caused. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my identity and asserting my worth. And with every passing moment, my determination grew stronger. I would not let fear dictate my actions any longer. This time, I would be the one in control. I would confront her, and in doing so, I would finally reclaim my voice. The room vibrated with a tense energy as I stepped into the family gathering, the familiar scent of pot roast and roasted vegetables mixing with the anxiety swirling in my stomach. I had dressed carefully, choosing a deep blue dress that hugged my figure and made me feel strong, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside. I could hear the murmur of conversations around me, punctuated by laughter that felt like daggers. My heart raced, each beat echoing the mantra in my head. I would confront her today, and I scanned the room, my gaze landing on my mother, seated at the head of the table, her expression a mask of calculated indifference. I felt the weight of her expectations pressing down on me, but beneath that pressure, a surge of defiance ignited within me. I would not allow her to belittle me any longer. As I approached, the chatter faded into a low hum, the air thickening with anticipation. I could feel the eyes of my family on me, a mix of curiosity and concern. Zoe dear, are you going to just stand? My mother called out, her tone dripping with sarcasm. I took a deep breath, tasting the bitterness of her words, and stepped forward, my pulse quickening. In that moment, I knew I couldn't back down. I had rehearsed this countless times, each word a lifeline that pulled me toward my truth. Mom, I need to talk to you, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. I felt Alex's reassuring presence at my back, his silent support a beacon in the storm. The room quieted, all eyes turning toward us, the weight of what was about to unfold hanging heavily in the air. And she raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. Oh, about what, dear? Your latest failure, the laughter that followed felt like a punch to my gut, but I pressed on, my heart pounding fiercely against my ribcage. About the onesie you gave me at the baby shower, I began, the words pouring out like a flood. The one that said unexpected disappointment, I could feel every pair of eyes on me, some surprised, others intrigued. My mother's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, and I seized the moment. It wasn't just a joke to me. It was a reminder of how little you value me, how your words have cut me deep for years. And gasps echoed around the room, but I didn't let that deter me. I will not be reduced to a punchline anymore. This ends with me. I deserve respect, not ridicule. I deserve to be seen for who I am, not for who you want me to be. My voice grew stronger with each word, fueled by the years of hurt and the burning desire for validation. And the room was silent, my family members exchanging glances, their expressions a mix of shock and support. I could see the disbelief in my mother's eyes, her facade cracking under the pressure of my honesty. You think this is a joke? You think I'm just being dramatic? She spat, but I held my ground. No, Mom. I'm being honest. I'm tired of your sarcasm, your constant need to control and belittle me. I won't let your words dictate my worth any longer, backslash. I felt a wave of energy surge through me, each word sending a ripple of defiance into the room. Backslash n as I finished, a strange silence settled, the tension palpable. I could feel my heart racing, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had done it. I had stood up to her. The release was intoxicating, washing over me like a warm tide, and for the first time, I felt the weight of her expectations lift off my shoulders. Backslash n in that moment, I realized that the confrontation wasn't just about reclaiming my voice. It was about breaking free from the chains of her ridicule and stepping into my own power. I had faced the storm and emerged, not unscathed, but undeniably stronger. Whatever came next, I was ready. My silence was never consent, and today I had finally spoken my truth. Backslash n in the days following the confrontation, a strange sense of calm settled over me, like the eye of a storm after the chaos. The sun poured through my window, illuminating the remnants of my emotional battle. I sat in the living room, the familiar scent of coffee wafting through the air, mingling with the faint echoes of laughter from the family gathering that had transpired only days before. I could still feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, a reminder of the strength I had summoned to finally speak my truth. Backslash and I reflected on the moment I had stood up to my mother, the weight of her expectations lifting as I had articulated the hurt her words had caused. I had not only confronted her, I had confronted myself, peeling back the layers of doubt and insecurity that had shrouded my identity for far too long. The memory of her shocked expression lingered in my mind, a bittersweet reminder of the power I held when I chose to reclaim my voice. Backslash n as I sipped my coffee, I felt a newfound confidence blossoming within me. It was as if I had shed a heavy cloak of shame, revealing the vibrant colors of my true self beneath. I remembered Maya's words, her unwavering support echoing in my mind, encouraging me to embrace my worth. Backslash and the following evening, I gathered the courage to call my mother. The phone rang, each tone stretching my nerves taut. When she finally answered, her voice was laced with a mixture of apprehension and defiance. Zoe, what do you want? She snapped, but I was ready. Mom, I want to talk about what happened. I think we need to clear the air. I said, my voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in my stomach. I could hear her inhale sharply, the silence that followed heavy with unspoken words. I didn't mean to hurt you, you know that, she replied, a hint of vulnerability breaking through her usual bravado. In that moment, I realized that this conversation was not just about her acknowledging my pain. It was also about me allowing myself to be open to reconciliation. I know you didn't mean it, but your words have consequences, Mom. I want us to have a relationship where we can be honest with each other without the sarcasm and the put-downs, I stated, my heart racing as I laid bare my feelings. And there was a pause before she responded, her tone softer, almost reflective. Maybe I need to work on that. I'm sorry, Zoe, I really am, it's hard for me to show affection. I thought I was being funny, and her admission surprised me, and for the first time I felt a flicker of understanding. Perhaps her sarcasm was a mask for her own insecurities, just as my silence had been a mask for mine. N as we navigated the conversation, I could feel the walls between us beginning to crumble. It wasn't an instant fix, and I knew that trust would take time to rebuild, but the seeds of healing were being sown. I hung up the phone with a sense of hope, a promise that we could move forward together, albeit slowly. N in the quiet moments that followed, I felt a sense of acceptance wash over me. I had stood my ground and voiced my feelings, and now I was on the path to healing, not just my relationship with my mother, but my relationship with myself. I was no longer defined by her expectations. I was Zoe, a woman reclaiming her identity, her voice, and her worth. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing I had the strength to face it head on. N as I sat on my porch, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the neighborhood. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine, and the distant laughter of children playing echoed like a sweet melody. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few weeks lift as I reflected on my journey. I had stood up to my mother, and in doing so, I had not only reclaimed my voice, but had also begun to rewrite the narrative of my life. No longer would I allow her words to dictate my worth. And I remembered the moment of confrontation vividly, the way my heart raced as I spoke my truth, the sense of liberation that followed.